Hi, this is Tim Chapman again, and welcome to another showing of Healing and Hope. I have the privilege today, the honor of having an author, a real live author, and she writes good, too. She's a very dear friend of mine. Her name is Carol Shelton. Carol, welcome to Hope and Healing.
Thank you, Tim.
How are you today?
I'm good.
Good. Carol has written a book called Cosmic Chaos. And I haven't been fortunate enough to read it yet, but I know of some other things Carol dabbles in, and she's a professional from every sense of the word. I'm going to get a copy of this as soon as possible, because if it's anything like the other things I've seen Carol do, it's going to be amazing. So, Carol, I know about some things because, you know, we've known each other through church and stuff. Now, your book is fiction.
It is, yes.
So when did you begin telling stories?
I actually started telling stories when I was very, very little. And I was just spouting out stories, and my mom would be like, wait, let me get to the typewriter because I want to type this out.
Wow.
And so I was just so fascinated with the fact that she would sit there with this clacky typewriter and tap out every word that I said. And when she was done and she would pull out that paper, there would be this story that I had said to her, and I got to keep it. And so that just really stirred up the storyteller in me.
Wow.
And so my mom really supported that and kept me going on it. And then when I was 9 years old, one of my stories was published in the local newspaper.
My goodness.
And so I was pretty excited about that because, you know, I was just little, and to open up the newspaper and to see your work there was pretty amazing.
Yes, yes. So Mom was actually, you benefited from Mom's motherhood, from being a mom.
Yes.
Now, back then, obviously, school, was school helpful in that? I mean, because I knew that when I was a child, I used to love to read things. And I wasn't much of a writer, but I loved to read things. I loved to sing. But then I'd get to school and I'd go, why bother? What am I doing here? Were you one of those, or were you a good student? You know, did you enjoy English and lit?
I wasn't the best student, but I did enjoy reading, I think because I knew I was good at it. But I did have a hard time finding books that I enjoyed reading.
Yeah.
Those were very few and far between. And so when I started homeschooling my children, I actually went through tons of books at the library and found books at Goodwill and just pre-read them to find really good literature for my children so that they would just have really great books to read. The ones that were just so-so, I just tossed at the side. And so they had these volumes of great literature to read, and so they have become great readers themselves.
And you've become your mother.
Yes. Yes.
All right, so what happened as an adult that caused you to start writing with purpose, even now?
Well, I was working for an insurance company for 7 years, and I knew that once I had a baby, I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. And so I did that, and I was at home, and I still really enjoyed writing. I took some writing courses online, and it was just something that was off to the side. And then I was reading this book one day, and it was called Hard to Believe by John MacArthur. And the takeaway that I got from that book was that if you are a Christian, then you are going to be telling others about Jesus. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm not doing that. I don't tell people about Jesus. I don't talk to him. That's not something that I do, but I'm a quiet person. I'm not just going to go around shoving Jesus down people's throats just because that's what I'm supposed to do as a Christian. And so that was really heavy on my heart, and I was praying, God, how can I, in being the person that you created me to be as a quiet person, share about you with others? And he said, I want you to write. And I thought, oh my gosh, yes, I can do that. I can totally do that. And so I thought, I have no idea what I'm going to write, but I am going to start taking my writing seriously. So I started a writing routine, and I was writing every day. And I I had my 2 little girls at the time, and I thought, maybe I'll write for children, write some children's books and write about God and just write something there. And so I started working on these stories, and I was sending everything that I wrote, every story, I would send it to my mom and say, hey, what do you think? And every time she would write back and she would say, it's wonderful, it's lovely,
That's Mom.
it's delightful. I thought, wow, I'm doing so good. and so then I was writing the story about a horse. And I grew up with horses at a certain period of my life, but I wasn't a horse expert, and my dad is. And so I thought, okay, I need to have my dad read this story so that he can give me feedback on the whole horse aspect and make sure I'm on the right track. So I sent him the story to read, and he says, that is a squirrely story that nobody's going to want to read. And I thought, oh my gosh.
Oh,
it was terrible. But it was good because it was a wake-up call for me. And I realized I probably need to have more than just my mom reading my writing and have other people, like people who are writers, people who know what they're talking about.
Objective criticism.
Yes, constructive criticism. So that began my journey of going to writers' conferences, taking more one-on-one classes, getting some mentoring, and finding out really what good writing looks like and what it takes to get published. And so I started down that journey, and I realized that it would be really great to be part of a critique group because they meet each month and they go over each other's writing and then they give feedback, and some of it's good, some of it's bad, but you just take what you feel works for you and you grow from it and you learn. And so I started writing this one picture book about this princess. And I brought it to my critique group, and they said, we love this. This is so good, but we want more details. Can you go a little deeper in the story? And I thought, oh, well, it's a picture book. It's supposed to be like 500 words, and you want me to go deeper. I said, well, maybe I could do a chapter book. That'll take more time. It'll take a little more effort, but, I could give it a shot. So I started writing these chapters, and I started really loving that whole aspect of going really deep into character and deep into a story. And it just started growing from there. And as I was producing more chapters, my critique group was like, this is so great. This is so you. This really fits you. And as I was going over my work, I was realizing how this really works well for middle grade chapter books. So that was where I found my writer voice, was for middle grade. And so I just focused on that, and now I have all these writing projects for middle grade that I'm working on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Middle grade. Okay, so Cosmic Chaos, as I said earlier, I haven't had a chance to read it. I've heard about it. I know of it. What's it about? This is your shot here, okay? Because, all right, I just ran into you in Barnes & Nobles, and you picked up that book, and you've read it, so tell me about it.
Okay, so it's about a boy named Logan. He's 12 years old, and he lives on the moon.
On the moon.
And he's trying to get back to his mom, who is a scientist on Earth. And he just goes through the struggle of trying to get back to her. And so on the moon, it's kind of a futuristic moon colony, and there's robots, and then he accidentally ends up time traveling, and there's dinosaurs, and there's these other characters that he ends up getting to know. So there's a lot of action and some fun parts and lots of adventure.
So why do you feel that middle grade is an important age to write for, or important group?
Well,
and now when you say middle, you said middle grade before. Are you talking like middle school age?
Yeah, middle school age, so 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And I had actually started writing for middle grade kids and really loving just really loving writing, being able to write for that age group. And then I was reading about teaching for Sunday school, because I teach middle grade Sunday school, and there was something in the book that really struck a chord with me, and it said that if kids don't have an encounter with Christ by the time they're age 11, then the chances of them getting saved after that, even into adulthood, is very, very slim. And I thought, wow, that's a very narrow window, very short opportunity in order to get kids aware of who Jesus is and how much he loves them.
I totally 100% agree with that. There's something about that middle school age, that group. They're mature enough that they're not all over the place and running out to go to the bathroom and all these other things, and you pray with them, they're a lot easier to respond.
Right. Yes.
And high school kids, by the time they get there, they tend to have known it all. They can be a little argumentative, and they're amazed when they get older at how smart their parents have become, that type of thing. What I'd like for you to do, Carol, is just take a second, and I just lost my notes, and we'll, can we get a shot of her over here on her camera? There you are. And just kind of look at the camera here. She didn't know I was going to do this. I like to put people out. And just, if there's an aspiring or a person that had the same background as you, just grew up loving to write things, and help them get started here. You go step by step on how Carol went from just a kid whose mom approved of everything she loved to a writer now and self-published. Are you self-publishing?
No, I have a publisher.
Oh,
yes.
God bless you. And to a published author. I mean, I got a published author here. Just take a second and talk to him.
I would say get your work out there where other people can see it, people that you trust to read your work and give you feedback. And if you are very nervous or uncomfortable, just ask them to give you some positive feedback first. And then as you begin to learn and grow, ask for more constructive criticism. And then you have that choice of whether or not you accept it and want to use it, or you can just say, that's not for me, it's your choice. And so as you write more, you will grow. And so I say just write every day, get into a routine, read books about the craft of writing, get into classes, and do anything and everything that you can to learn more, because the more that you learn, the more that you can apply it.
Wonderful, wonderful. The first step takes you. It's getting off the chair, coming out of the kitchen, doing whatever it is that you're doing that replaces your drive to do something you really want to do, and just go for it, man. Go for it. Especially you believers out there. Carol mentioned she talked about God a second ago. Well, God is an author too. God wrote the biggest best-selling book of all time. So it's natural that his kids should get out there and write something, tell somebody something, even like she said, tell somebody about Jesus. That's what hope and healing is about. The only hope I know is Jesus Christ, and he's the author and finisher of all faith and all healing. So get something out there about Jesus. Tell somebody about him today. Go see somebody that's sick. Pray for them. Read them a book. That sounds good. Carol's got me on this kick now. Okay. Carol, there were some unique elements to your story. Would you share what those are?
Yes. So one of the things in teaching Sunday school to middle schoolers and just in kids in general that I have discovered is typically in Sunday school and even at home, parents teaching their kids about what's in the Bible and the Bible stories. There's just the same old stories that they get told over and over and over. David and Goliath, Adam and Eve, and it's just the same things. And so when I began reading the Bible on my own from front to cover over and over and over, there were things in there that I did not know were in the Bible. And I thought, how many other people don't know that there are certain things in there, like the book of Genesis. It talks about there being gold in the Garden of Eden. And so I just started adding different things into this story that would intrigue kids enough to wonder, is that really in the Bible? Is that really in there? I want to crack that Bible open and read it for myself to find out.
Yes.
And I've actually, some even adults who have read this story have said that they weren't sure that that really was in the Bible, and they had to look for it themselves.
Wonderful. You know, I used to do a lot of high school assembly type stuff, and I share my testimony in them. And one of the things I took a priority in was, you know, it's hard to go into a high school, especially when you can't talk about God and you can't talk about the Bible and things. But one of the ways I used to talk about the Bible to them was I'd say, you know, there's a book, and it's written by God, so you guys know what the book is about. But did you know in that book, there's everything a person could ever want to read. There is sex, there's murder, there's love. I mean, it's a love story. The whole book is a love story. Anything you can imagine that's out there today is in there now. Somebody's going to sit there and say, he said sex is in the Bible. Sex, he just made that a dirty book. No, God created sex, but I ain't even going into that. All right? That stuff is in the Bible. It's in there. Anything you can name, imagine is in there. The Bible is not a boring book. Some people want to tell you how to read it. Some people want to interpret what you're reading. Sit down, get to know God. Let him interpret it for you where you run into problems. He's glad to do that stuff. The Bible is a phenomenal book. And I don't just say that because I'm a Christian or I'm religious. I'm definitely not religious. But I just know that after reading the Bible several times, I can recommend it to anybody. Speaking of recommending, now what was the motivation behind Cosmic Chaos?
The motivation. When my daughters were older and they were reading a lot of Christian fiction that I was picking out for them, one of their frustrations was that so much Christian fiction for kids, they end up getting preached at. And they hate that because they already know about God and the Bible. They don't want to be preached at. They don't want to be told that they need to have Jesus in their hearts because they already do.
Right.
And so one of the things that I wanted to include in this story was things that would be interesting enough to Christian readers and yet also be eye-opening and intriguing enough for non-Christians. So basically just a very gentle blend of the two so that it can reach lots of kids and not just Christian kids.
So now I know that this is something you believe firmly, and so I'm just going to come right out and ask you, why do you believe homeschool families would enjoy Cosmic Chaos? Why that group?
Because one, homeschoolers love to read.
Yes.
And two, because so many homeschool families, they have these unit studies where they're studying certain topics. And while studying certain topics, they want to be able to have nonfiction and fiction books that support what's being taught. And so often there's a lack in Christian fiction that will support things like dinosaurs being in a young earth and being part of the 6 days of creation. And so that aspect is in my story. And then also the main girl character in the story, she's actually a homeschooled girl. And so that's another thing that homeschool families really wish that they could have, was stories with homeschooled kids in them. And so the story has that.
Wonderful. So what's your hope? What's your hope for your publisher? What's their hope for the release of the book? How are they going to primarily go into the Christian market, or do you have any idea? Do they have a plan for it, or?
They are reaching out in more of the larger aspects. Good. And then my focus is to do things like this today, and to reach out to friends and family, go to homeschool conventions, go to book signings, and yeah.
Good. As I said, I've known Carol for several years now, and everything this lady says, she is. I mean, a lot of times we want to judge people or we want to look at them in a different light. But this lady is just as bubbly in real life as she is on here today. And I know her something about her convictions. I know her children, and she's just raised the most beautiful children in the world. They're all wonderful. Being a man of age, I appreciate children that respect their elders, especially when I was raised that way. And I can honestly say Carol's kids are that way. So she actually is not on here hyping a book or hyping herself. What she's saying, she believes. And she's one of the most humble people I've met also. I haven't read Cosmic Chaos. I promise you I will. And we're also going to put an address on the screen here at some point so you can get more information about the book and more information about Carol. You said earlier, Carol, that you wanted to go to these events, homeschooling events and things like that. Mm-hmm. Are there any in particular that you want to press here while we got an audience here, that you...
Oh, I do plan to attend the homeschool convention. I believe it's in Portland this June.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah, maybe someone will see me there at a booth.
All righty. All right. I just want to move to, it's hard to shift gears here, but, I got another cut for you, bro. I come from a background, and in fact, I said last show that I would be talking about this at some point, where before I knew Christ, I did a lot of drugs and alcohol and things like that. And my life was pretty much done. It was done. At the age of, I think I was 34, 35, I asked Jesus into my heart. My whole life changed. Believe it or not, I was doomed to 6 months to live. I had cirrhosis of the liver and some other things. So my life was pretty much closed at that point. I thought I was dying and that was it. Then Jesus. So all I'll say is a year from the time I got that diagnosis, I went back to the same doctor. They ran the test twice and he said I had a new liver. Now, you can believe that if you want. The records are there. God did that. There's no way I could have done that. There's no way man could have done that. As far as I know, there's no medicine on the market that gives you a new liver. So I was given back my life. And some of you already know this. Some of you already know Christ. Some of you have been sitting on your God-given talents and gifts for years. You hear somebody like Carol and you say, oh, I could never do that. How do you know till you try? I have done things that I never thought I could do. Praise God. God has proved to me that the devil is a liar over and over and over and over again. You don't know till you step out of the boat and try. I wish Carol every blessing in the world. I believe just because of my knowing who she is and what she's about, I believe she's going to be successful at anything she puts her hand on, because she's just that type of person. And that's how God created you. God did not create you thinking you were going to do everything in the first try, the second try, the third try. He created you knowing that you would do it at some point. You may take 5 or 6 tries. I have a brother that wanted to be a police officer. He took the test 9 times before he finally got into the academy. It wasn't because he was dumb. There was a lot of things that added to that. There was some politics involved and, those things. But anyway, he's been a police officer now he's going on a career in it. I believe he's somewhere around 20 years. Now, if someone were to hear that, they would say, well, he took it 9 times. He probably wasn't meant to be a police officer. No, I'd say just the opposite. He was, and he fought for it because in his heart he believed he could do it. And it's the same for you. You got that book in you, you got that story in you, you got that song in you. Put them on paper, and then do what Carol said. Find somebody with constructive criticism. You can ask Mom if you want. She liked that. But find somebody that is going to tell you, kind of like what Dad did about the horses. That's a little squirrely. I actually appreciate I appreciate those critiques. So I'm going to ask Carol here. Carol, would you just, again, look at the camera and just give us a little prayer for those people out there that want to do this thing? Could you just say a quick prayer for them? And
Sure.
bless them here today.
Lord Jesus, I ask that you would bless every person who desires to write for you and write what's on your heart for people. I ask that you would give them supernatural insight, that your stories would just come down from heaven and would just fill them until it just brims to overflowing and just pours out of them, and that you would give them a spirit of excellence and quality as they begin to write those stories for you.
Thank you, Lord. Well, once again, this is Hope and Healing. My name is Tim Chapman. I want to thank you for tuning in today. Again, we're going to run Carol's information along the bottom of the screen here, if it's not there already. You can ask her, you can contact her and ask her about the book or ways you can obtain the book. You'd be blessed. I know you'll be blessed. You can say, that guy on TV said I'll be blessed. You'll be blessed, okay? And I want to thank you again for tuning in to Hope and Healing today. I enjoy doing this show. I hope you enjoy the show as much as I enjoy doing it. So, Carol, thank you so much for doing this for me today. And run out, find a way to talk to Carol. Bless her. She'll bless you. And on behalf of Tim Chapman and Hope and Healing, y'all have a blessed week.